Hello, you beautiful, wonderful souls. Welcome to another all-time classic tier list banger of the video. Today we're going to be tier listing substance combos. Two substances per combo to be specific. So we got about 18 of them over here off to the side. And I tried to color code them as you can see. We don't really need to get into that. I also put substance names here, but they generally kind of imply the class, right? So you'll see something like Xans here. Uh, you'll see pre-Gab as well in a lot of these combos, and really, you could replace the Xans with a different benzo. You could replace the pre-Gab with a, gabapentin. Yeah, that's about it. I also need to preface this by saying that I'm not really taking the health concerns deeply into consideration. I'm taking them into some consideration, but I'm mostly just going to be ranking the feeling here. My subjective feeling, that is. So anything I say here might not apply to you. I really don't recommend you do any of these. Mixing substances can be very dangerous. Substances alone, even the solo substance experience, can be pretty dangerous. So I do not condone the use of any substances, be they legal or illegal. I just want to make this video for educational and entertainment purposes, okay? One more thing before we begin. I tried not to include things I have very little experience with or things that don't really make a lot of sense combining, like amphetamines and caffeine, right? They compete for the same receptors in your brain. And also things that are just really, really exceptionally dangerous, like mixing coke and alcohol. So you won't see these here. If you need me to tier list Coke and alcohol, it's going below F tier. I really don't get the combo. I tried it and it was just like, oh, you rail a line so you can drink more. Wow. Awful, awful. Either way, I think we're ready to begin. Let's start us off with a big, big time classic, right? Weed and alcohol. The good old classic crossfade. Now, these two potentiate each other, but from the last tier list, if you remember or if you watched it, if you didn't, I'll remind you. Weed was S, alcohol was, I think, C, and I think together they can get a B. I'll give them a B because I can appreciate the potentiation. However, there's one big issue. Usually, the one you take more of, and it's hard to determine, kind of. My personal experience with this combo is that if I had a lot to drink and not a lot to smoke, the weed will actually potentiate the alcohol. And for a lot of people, this will be actually the trigger to puking. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, puking means the night is absolutely over. There is no recovering other than a full night of sleep, you know? So, yeah, I really want to avoid puke at all costs. So, this will get a B because sometimes the weed potentiation feels nice. I really just don't enjoy alcohol that much. So let's put it in B for now. I honestly would just rather smoke more if I have the option. So let's move on to something a little different here. Let's do MDMA and nicotine. An interesting one because it's the only combo where I put nicotine. Because, yeah, generally, I feel like nicotine doesn't really mix with anything. I mean, people can mix whatever they mix, but I don't feel like there's any synergy. Most of the J's I smoke actually are spliffs, and I really couldn't care less. Like you can just again, same as with weed and alcohol, just give me more weed. I'll fucking take it. Either way, that being said, this is still getting an S tier. I'm not the biggest fan of nicotine, but smoking a cigarette off the molly, at least for me, just feels like you're melting. It tastes like air. It Well, the taste is nicer. There's some taste to it. It might not be air, but the harshness of the smoke is literally air, and that could be Marlboro Red even. Those awful, awful contraptions of cigarettes. Even then, motherfuckers will be great on MDMA for me. don't really have much more to say about it. It's not that big of a combo, but it's crazy how like I would genuinely prefer to have a cigarette over a J in this state. It might be the only state where I'd prefer to have a cigarette over a J, right? That's crazy. Let's move on to something a little different though. Let's do hmm. Let's try not to do things that'll get people clicking off. So I'll do amphetamines and Xans. I didn't really include many of the upper downer combos here. I mean, there's a few, right? But amphetamines and Xans in particular, I put them here because I I just have too many side effects from the amphetamines. And compared to pregabalin, which I have in a lot of these combos, Xans do an even better job of reducing those negative symptoms. In fact, I think they just completely nullify them. And the feeling is, for me, it's great. It's a little dangerous, and I don't like amphetamines in general. But yeah, Xans kind of take care of that, and also the negatives of Xans kind of get countered by the amphetamine too. So I think I'll be putting them in the B tier. Yeah, let's keep it in B for now. I'll even put it below weed and alcohol. I wouldn't ever advise mixing this or anything, right, as I said, but I just can't do amphetamines without some Xans at hand. I need them at hand, but for the most part, I'll take them after because doing them at the same time is kind of risque, you know? So let's keep it in B. Modafinil and weed. I was just hovering it with my mouse. Let's fucking do it. Um, Modafinil is pretty interesting because, yeah, it's stimulant. It really, like, caffeine is more euphoric than modafinil. There's really no euphoria associated with it. However, if you smoke some weed, I think that some of the potential negatives that come with modafinil will be countered by the weed, and it actually does kind of synergize. It gives an interesting experience, which I wouldn't say is anything crazy, right? But I already love weed, so modafinil and weed. It's getting an A. It's getting an A. No further explanation needed, I hope. Anyways, MDMA and weed. This one is tricky. This one is pretty tricky because, first of all, it's really hard to land the combo. Like, when I did this, like back in high school, I would take a tolerance break from weed and I would prepare a lot of fucking weed. Like a shit ton. I remember one time I prepared a full pack, a cigarette pack with just J's. And that was before even wanted to touch tobacco. So they were all pure. Um, and the combo is pretty interesting. It's kind of psychedelic, but in a weird way. I think visually it's almost more like a dissociative. I don't have much experience with dissociative, so I can't say, but visually it's pretty fucking stunning if I do say so myself, because I just remember seeing things like, I don't know, like bushes turning into like a spiral staircase. Like it's still all made of leaves and twigs, but like they just things become geometrically satisfying. And my way of explaining this to myself was, oh, you get the nystagmus from the MDMA, but weed like makes your neurons take less breaks, so maybe you're filling in more of the blanks with your imagination. I don't even know. So that's kind of it. That things become geometrically satisfying, if you will, but you can't really hold a conversation. Your RAM in your brain, like your working memory, is non-existent. So you like struggle to hold a conversation. So really, there's a lot of ups and downs here. I think I think we're gonna put it in B. I'm just gonna put it above amphetamines and Xans. Yeah, I'll put it here. Also, I don't really look at things like smoking a J when your roll is done, because for me personally, that's essential. It helps me sleep, it helps with the come down, all this and all that. Let's keep it in B, okay? moving on. Let's do pregabalin Xans. Pregabalin and Xanax, baby. Now, you'll notice I put Xans here, right? But this generally just implies benzos. I just really wanted to have things be uniform here, so everything here will be an individual drug name, and don't you dare say it should be THC instead of weed. That's just boring to say. Pregabalin Xans. A. I'll put it in A. I'll put it. Hmm. I'll put it below modafinil and weed, but it's going in the A tier. These potentiate each other, or rather, I usually take the pregabalin first, so it's going to be potentiating the Xans. And as I might have mentioned in the last tier list, pregabalin gets me pretty stimulated. So a Xan, usually I'll just do like 0.5 mg, right? Just to take the edge off, basically. Not really a fascinating combo in any way, but because I love pregabalin, the combo is getting an A. Let's continue. Let's continue. I'm gonna do. What did I not do? Let's do the last one here from the bottom. MDMA and ketamine. Now, I know I said I tried not to include things I don't have much experience with. I only have one experience with this combo, but it was pretty nice. It was pretty nice. Uh, really, just really interesting how the M turns the ketamine kind of wobbliness and weirdness into something smoother, but also more psychedelic. I think we got ourselves another entry in the S tier. I can't really do much explanation here. That's my memory of the experience, but it was just one experience. So yeah, I definitely would do this again, though. I think we gotta do it to him. I think we gotta do it to him. Pre-gab and alcohol. Don't you dare move that. Okay. Pre-gab and alcohol. I think, let me just be straight up with you. This, for me, is the only way to enjoy alcohol. You gotta limit yourself to much less drinking when you're doing this combo. Obviously, that depends on how much pregabalin one takes. But I usually just stick to my 300 mg dose. Maybe I'll do 450 if I'm feeling kind of frisky with it, right? But I'll have like one or two beers with it, and the feeling is quite nice. This really is where the term GABA walk that I always say comes from. Pre-GABA and alcohol, yeah, it's an S tier. For me, it's just like how people who really love alcohol describe alcohol. That's kind of how it feels for me. The pre-gab really does that to a lot of substances. I'd say when I smoke weed off the pregabalin, I also kind of feel the weed kind of feels like how people describe it, which usually for me that is weed isn't really like relaxing or anything. It's kind of more stimulating than it is relaxing. So yeah, I'm not talking about that now. We're talking about pre-gab and alcohol. I don't know what else I can say about it. Oh yeah, uh, you know, take this how you will, but this combo also gives you kind of a nod if you do enough. It's really something I shouldn't be saying, but like I did enjoy a few experiences where I would be sipping off the pre-gab and I would reach the point of nodding, and then it was like a little game of balance where I would feel each sip, and it would kick in pretty fucking fast. I would feel each sip, and then I would ride this thin line of being right between nodding and conscious, I guess. I don't know. I had some fun with it. Won't say much more. Let's move on to a different combo. For our next combo, let's talk about oof. Oof. The candy flip. This is really tough, and I'm probably gonna get some hate for this. So let's first talk about the positives. I really loved this combo when it worked. Really, my first candy flip experience was phenomenal. The visuals are absolutely stunning. The feeling was probably one of, if not the best feeling mentally just that I had in my life, also physically. And that's all fine and dandy. But I tried this combo multiple times, and it only worked that one time. I don't know why. I would love if somebody explained it to me. And don't say that I had shit Molly, because I really like this was Molly that would work in other instances, but when I was off the acid and did Molly, it just disappeared. Like I don't know where the Molly went. They didn't do anything together. I had experiences as well where I would take the Molly and the acid would kind of wear off, and then I would transition into a pure Molly high. Um, but yeah, just because I can't land the combo and I'm salty about that, I think we're gonna have our first entry in the C tier. Why is this gray? Am I tripping? I don't know. It feels a little grayer here. We don't need to discuss things that are not worth discussing. Uh, let us move on to cocaine and pre-gab. Did I talk about it? I did not talk about it. Uh, Coke is not something that I thoroughly enjoy, but I do enjoy it. And the reason I put this combo here is just kind of to mention that I don't really take stimulants without pre-gab. It just makes everything smoother compared to Zans. It's it's a little cleaner feeling, but yeah, if you have something like amphetamines, which for me cause way too many negatives, then the Zans are kind of better at killing that. But Coke doesn't cause that many negatives. So something like Pregab, which will eliminate the few that it does cause and potentiate the few positives that it does have, I think we got ourselves another entry. I mean, I can't give it an S. I'll just give it an A. I don't think it's an S, yeah. We got 10 here, so I believe there should be 8 left. We've done these 3. Let's do... Oof. Oof. Let's do LSD and weed. This is another one that I might get hate for. But this combo never did anything for me. In fact, no. Yeah. No. Yeah. I'll put it in the F tier simply because I never felt the synergy from these two. I generally don't enjoy acid. The acid completely overrides the weed. So like if I smoke, I won't really feel anything other than like a negative sensation from smoking, because acid just usually will make everything taste bad, everything physically feel weird for me. So I think this might be the first and last entry in the F tier. I'm really not sure if any of the other ones I put in here are getting F. So yeah, I sincerely apologize to all my psychonauts out there. Cheers, I hope you're staying hydrated, by the way. But I do not find this combo particularly enjoyable. Uh, and usually with things like this, like acid M, acid weed, I just get salty. Like people talk about these wonderful experiences, and then I just can't have them, you know? So that's a lesson right there. I might put these in S. They might be absolute Z tier for you? Who knows? Either way, I don't have much to say about it. Just doesn't really mix for me. Like you could argue it's a C because it stays acid, and I think I put acid and C in the last one, but just because of the saltiness and the fact that I kind of feel like it's a waste of weed for me, I'll just put it in F. Weed and Zans. Now, Zans, I believe I mentioned in the last tier list, or benzos, right? Uh, they don't really do much for me. In fact, they kind of feel like an anti-drug. It kind of feels like the opposite of a high. It's a low. But when I smoke, it becomes pretty damn nice. Like I really enjoy that experience. Now, hmm, since this is benzos and not just Zans, remember I put Zans because I wanted individual drug names. I think we might have to bump it down to B. Because if it's Zans, I'll put it in A. If it's like some of those super strong benzos like clonazepam, it would get like a well, it would get like a F. Yeah, it would honestly get an F. But because I have experience, I know not to do that combo. I'll just do weed and Zans. So let's keep it in B. Let's keep it in B. Weed and benzos, weed and Zans. And we've made it through these. Now, have I talked about caffeine and pregab? It appears I have not. So let's talk about it right now. Caffeine and pregab is pretty damn interesting. I put Coke and pregab right here, and I think that just means I'm gonna put caffeine and pregab right in front of it because this time I'm actually really taking the health side of the story into consideration because Coke is, considerably worse for you and snorting is a considerably more unhealthy route of administration than, the typical sipping of the caffeinated beverage. And the effects are really, really close. Like, yeah, sure, Coke clearly gives me more dopamine, but caffeine pregab, it's super stimulating. It's really nice to be able to feel the caffeine compared to when I just have caffeine on its own and it really doesn't do anything, or when I pretend like I'm speedballing, having a little coffee with my weed and it also doesn't really do anything. With the pregab is really like the only type of instance where I do feel noticeable caffeine effects that I like. I quite like them. It can lead to a bit of overstimulation, but nothing too terrible because again, the pregab, even though it potentiates it, it's kind of gonna prevent those like super stimmy crack head effects, that I would typically feel from something like amphetamines. That's why I would do Zans with them instead of pregab. You get me? You get me. So that is about that. I think we have about, what is this, 9, 10, 12, 13. I think that means, have we talked? Ooh, we haven't talked about MDMA and pregab. Oh my lord. Oh my lord. That one is just straight up. It's going to the top of the S tier. What? Hello? Bro. Okay. I don't know what that was. So M and pregab. I think this is gonna be our tippity top of the S tier because, you know, we're mixing two S tier substances from the individual substance tier list, and the few negatives that M has with it, I mean, they're sizable negatives, right? I just mentioned last time, right, that I respect the negatives. The MDMA experience is just so nice that for me personally, the negatives are kind of worth it. So pre-gab still just eliminates all the negatives. I don't get a come down. It prolongs the experience. It helps with like potential overstimulation. Like I won't be super stimmed out, but it's just a clean experience for me. I don't really have much to say about the effects. It mainly does still just feel like Molly, but without a come down, and the effects are extended. And even without weed here, I did mention that I always use weed after M to sleep. Even without weed, I can kind of fall asleep on this. It'll be pretty weird because, like, it lets me down slowly, and then while I'm still kind of feeling the M effects, like, I know I would be feeling the come down if I didn't take the pre-gab, but I still feel like all the serotonin and stuff, like, not all of it, but like a percentage of the serotonin, and I can fall asleep in that state. But I'm pretty grateful for that, and the sleep is improved because I'm off the pre-gab. So yeah, I really don't have anything mean to say to this combo. I'm gonna be nice to it. All right, all right, all right. Weed and pre-gab, two S tier substances from the last video. I think you're not gonna be surprised, or you might be. You might be surprised that I'm still putting it below M and nicotine, but I'm putting it a little above pre-gab and alcohol. We should take some health aspects into consideration, and weed is relatively benign acutely, let's say that, right? So, yeah, weed and pre-gab is getting an S tier. I did mention, I think, that pre-gab just makes the weed feel kinda how other people describe it, not how I would typically describe it. And still, that feeling of other people's description of weed I enjoy it. I actually enjoy it more than solo weed. So it's definitely getting an S. And yeah, the health concerns are much less than with pre-gab and alcohol, much less than this, less than this, less than this. Yeah, so health-wise, this is like the only one in the S tier that, I could do kind of like maybe let's say, I don't know, weekly. I'm talking about myself, of course. Like you shouldn't do any of these, and I really hope you don't. But I don't have much to say about it, really. I can describe the effects how I did, and I just appreciate this combo. And also, the weed does. Hmm. Yeah, I'm not moving it, but I gotta mention the weed also kind of potentiates the pregabalin. So even though like the GABA will make the weed kind of more relaxing, it also does the reverse, where I have the GABA stimulation, I smoke some weed, and then I'm even more stimulated, but not in a bad way, like taking too many amphetamines. I'm just stimulated in a way that I just have really a lot of motivation, a lot of energy to do whatever, and I'm just running, I just can't stop. I'm always doing something, and that's a nice feeling to have, especially as somebody who really doesn't do shit. Ooh, CK, Calvin Klein. All right. Now, I also believe this is one that was mentioned before, and it's going straight in the A tier. I just have to think about where in the A tier. Definitely nicer than Coke and Pre-Gab because it's a stronger feeling. Uh, I would say nicer than caffeine and pre-gab. I'm looking at this modafinil and weed here, and I'm like, all of these are like pretty significant, feeling wise. I don't know. It's interesting. Let's keep it where it is. Yeah, it's not like a big combo that'll leave you twacked out of your mind, but you know what? Maybe we don't want that. Maybe we don't want that. So, caffeine and weed. Caffeine and weed, in terms of a combo. Now, I might have mentioned I don't really. I just put it in D because nothing is in D, but it's not getting a D. I might have mentioned that I don't really feel any synergy here. I don't really feel much of a mix, but just because both of these are so fun to consume, I'll put it in the A tier. I genuinely feel like the caffeine in the mix is just placebo, like honestly for me. But like I will sip some caffeine with the weed and tell myself like, "Oh yeah, why are you not moving?" Did you see how irritating that was? Um anyways, yeah, I think the caffeine feeling here in the mix is just placebo for me at least. I don't notice much of a difference compared to just smoking weed, but because I'm doing two things that I enjoy, I'll give it an A. I'll give it an A. I think this might be the last one here. I believe it is. I hate you. Don't move. Yeah, Pregab and Zolpidem. This one right here. I don't know what to give it. Like, I don't like Zolpidem, and I honestly recently realized that this combo has something to it. Can you not? I don't know if you realize the irritation here, but either way, Pregab and Zolpidem, it's pretty enjoyable, but and it is like you've probably heard like the Zolpidem stories with the Euphoria and stuff and Shadow People, whatever. Yeah, that uh, I was still like to this day have just one Shadow People experience that I did quite like, but I did mix this two more times. No, I might have mixed it two times in my life, but really with the combo, I do kind of see what people say when they say, "Oh, Zolpidem is can be recreational. There's euphoria. There's this and that." That's when I see it. That's when I see it. There's noticeable euphoria, but at the same time, it kind of makes me really stupid. Like Zolpidem alone will make me stupid, but this combo, like I'll take a third of the Zolpidem that I'll do when I'm trying to have a Shadow People experience, and I'll become more stupid, you know, which is weird because normally Pregab just has nootropic effects for me. Like it makes me feel much more functional than sober. So, an interesting combo nonetheless, worth mentioning in my opinion. But that is about it for the list, ladies and gents. There's a lot of entries here, and the S and the A tier, and even B tier should be mentioned, right? Because these three tiers seem pretty good. But again, I have to say it, I do not recommend or condone any of these, not a combo, not a single substance. I hope that this video actually helps people who want to know how this feels. I hope it helps you not do it, because now you know at least how it feels for me. So maybe that'll help you stay away from it. Don't want to risk these things. They can be fun, but they can also be really dangerous. So that is about it for the list. I think I'm gonna now start zooming this out so that we can get a nice little final image. Yup, 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 yup. Oh, we're almost there. And boom. Whatever. I don't even remember what the zoom level was last time. And I think I've been talking way too much and I'm kind of tired. That's about it though, ladies and gents. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more bits and bobs, right? We'll see what the next video is going to be. Maybe another game versus substance. Maybe something new that we haven't seen. I don't even know, so you definitely don't. Anyways, take care.